Hey there, welcome to Someone's Gotta Make It. On this show, I'm talking to the founders and leaders behind businesses that make ordinary, everyday products you encounter all the time. You walk on this stuff, you sleep under it, sometimes it's swimming around in your body, and we're going to hear how they overcame the growing pains of building a great company from scratch. If you're building a business right now, you definitely want to pay attention. These folks have gone through the same challenges that you're probably experiencing right now, and they found practical ways to overcome those challenges. I'm your host, Ben Goldstein. I am the VP of Marketing at Nutshell. Nutshell is a CRM and email marketing platform based right here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. We help thousands of companies all over the world get organized, automate the little stuff so they can focus on what really matters, which is building stronger relationships with their buyers. On this episode, I'm talking to Gina Adams. Gina is the founder and CEO of Wearology, and Wearology makes things designed to help people with disabilities regain their independence. So for example, someone who has limited use of their arms or because of a medical condition, they have trouble putting buttons through holes. Wearology makes shirts with magnetic buttons to make getting dressed easier, among many other things. Being able to do small things, maybe things that you once took for granted, can have a huge impact on your confidence. Gina and I are going to deep dive into a topic that affects every person that runs a small business or who has ever tried to run a small business, and that's cash flow. What makes cash flow complicated at a new business? What makes it stressful? We're going to talk about the cash flow challenges that Gina ran into while getting this business off the ground and the lessons she learned along the way. It's a very candid conversation. And again, if you've ever tried to stand up a business of your own, Gina's experience is going to sound very familiar. So here's my conversation with Gina Adams of Wearology. Enjoy. Hi, Gina. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Tell me about the moment when you were inspired to start your company.
I was recovering from ACL surgery, visiting my parents, and my dad, who had Parkinson's, was in a very frail state. And as we both sat there with our own disabilities of sorts, it was really time to kind of reflect and look at what was available and how we could help people recover.
What were you doing professionally before you started the business?
I founded the environmental nonprofit Peace, Love, and Planet that I've been running for about 12 years, and I was a stay-at-home mom.
Every founder starts their business with a vision of what success would look like. What were you hoping to achieve when you started Wearology, and has that goal changed in the 3 years since you launched the company?
Our mission has always been to restore independence and empower people with physical challenges to lead life to the fullest. And that includes restoring levels of dignity when you can carry out activities of daily living that we might take for granted, like brushing your teeth or tying your shoes. So I do feel that through a very long and incredible journey of developing a physical consumer product. Our first was called Buttons to Buttons Magnetic Adapters, and that was designed to retrofit button shirts so that people could dress independently. And I will share that I actually will go on Amazon and read our reviews once in a while to see just if people enjoy it and if it's working. It's pretty rewarding to know that we've helped a lot of people out there with such a simple task of buttoning and making it effortless.
Tell me a little more about that product, Buttons to Buttons. That was the first product you developed and released, right?
Correct.
So where did the idea come from and what's been the response so far?
The idea was generated when I went back to school and acquired my MBA at Wayne State. And we were doing our customer discovery. I had witnessed one experience with my stepfather, but obviously with market research, you want to make sure that you're addressing a true need. And so we conducted over 300 interviews with end users and caregivers and clinicians. And really, something as simple as dressing is something that we should all be able to do. And so the inspiration of magnets, I don't know, I think they're pretty cool. And my son plays video games. And so I was watching him with his handheld remote and the caps that are on top of the thumb part. That was really, truly my inspiration of how we design and have patented the attachment and how it snaps on over the button.
That's really interesting. And so to this day, is Buttons to Button still one of your top sellers?
Yeah, it's our first proprietary product that's sold globally, and we're really proud of that. We sell on Amazon, and it wasn't until the pandemic hit where we started researching how people with disabilities were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. It has and continues to be devastating, but one of the call to actions was by skilled nursing facilities that had patients who were suffering from isolation and immobility and the compounding impacts related to not being able to stand up. So we embarked on our second development that I'm excited to share with your listeners called Portable Parallel Bars on Wheels. And as the name suggests, they are just like parallel bars. However, we have a proprietary hinge mechanism that allows it to fold in less than a minute and travel like a suitcase on wheels so that clinicians can deliver therapy directly to the patient bedside.
So who are the typical buyers for that product?
We shifted, which is really worth noting, that while wearology initially was directed, our customer were caregivers and people with disabilities. Now we are selling to hospitals and the VA, where we were actually awarded a contract by the VHA Innovators Network to develop this device in collaboration with VA clinicians in Richmond, Virginia.
How did you fund the original launch of Wearology? Where did the money come from?
I have bootstrapped Wearology through pitch competitions. The SBDC has been very kind in awarding us some BAF grants to cover some of those initial capital expenses and inventory costs and personal injection.
How did you prepare your personal life for the launch of this business? Did you have a lot of conversations with your family, getting their buy-in and preparing them for how life might change?
That's a great question, Ben, because when I was going through my MBA, and keep in mind, I graduated from Michigan State in 1992. I don't even think I had a computer when I went to college the first time. So when I went back to get my MBA, there was a lot of pulling cobwebs out of my brain and just getting organized through the marketing classes. And as I started honing in on these developments, I talked to my family about it. And the one thing they didn't teach you in the program is to be prepared for sleepless, long, exhausting days of entrepreneurship and business owners, because you can't afford to hire a staff. At least I couldn't. You're looking at it. Now I do have a team now, but it's still because of loans. Now we're in a new phase where we're taking on some more debt because we look at the opportunity of developing an FDA Class 1 medical device. We're pretty excited about it. So to answer your question, I did not talk to my family at length because I didn't know what I was in store for. Right. They make it look so easy in that 2-year MBA program. Like, yep, you get this, you do this, you have your market research, you get your customer, you build it, and they will come. No, it's not that easy.
During the planning phase before the launch of Wearology, did you have any kind of formal exit strategy in case it wasn't successful?
That is the hardest thing, is when do you give up? When do you pull the plug? I do have an exit strategy. You always have to have that. It's basically dissolve the company and get a real job. That's my exit strategy. Yeah. But I will say that despite every setback, because for every 2 steps forward, I do feel like it's 3 steps back. but there's a new opportunity or something that's giving me the green light to say, you know what, there's interest and we got to go with this. Buttons to buttons. I actually did take a job in 2020 because I felt I had run my course and I have 2 children. I'm single and it was time to get a real job. And of course, right as I accept that, I pitched to Home Shopping Network, selected us, and we won an amazing purchase order that we needed to take that next step and invest in it was probably $75,000 in capital equipment. So it's not just the inventory, it's that capital equipment that you want to know people love this and they're going to buy it. So we're like, okay, that's a green light for me. There's interest there. And then the same thing happened with the VA. We are a certified woman-owned company based here in Metro Detroit. We were selected out of 96 applicants. They selected 13, and we were one of those 13 that were awarded a contract to custom develop parallel bars with VA clinicians. And of course, the entrepreneur in me was like, this is so exciting. I have to do this. And so again, green light, and we move forward. I have to say, regrettably, not really. I'm not at the other company anymore because I could only do so much. And that's time management is probably something we don't have time to talk about today, pun intended.
Why? Was that a big lesson for you in the early stages of the business?
My business was almost ready to go under because I was working 60 hours a week at another company full time. And so you can only burn the candle at both ends for so long. And I did my best, but after 7 months at the other company, it was just the right time. I helped them with a lot of different aspects of development within their company, but I wasn't doing anybody justice by spreading myself so thin, including my kids.
Yeah, I hear that. And sort of on that note, founders always have to wear a ton of hats when growing a new business, especially in those early stages. What were some of those decisions or tasks that you took on in Wearology's first year that you hadn't anticipated or that surprised you?
I would say the loads of paperwork and just getting the business insurance and the fundraising. There's 3 pillars, right? You have your product that you're developing and all of the research that goes into that. Especially we develop proprietary innovations, and so it's all brand new, never been built. Then funding, as we touched on, is huge because physical products require inventory, cost of goods, and you got to pay your manufacturer, right? And these prototype houses for one-offs are not cheap. I paid expert engineers. You got to pay for that talent to get the drawings and get the first prototypes so that you can modify and make adjustments before you go into actual manufacturing. And then there's just the marketing and sales and staffing. So it's those 3 pillars that I like to try and bring on experts so that I don't have to give too much direction because I don't have time to tell people what to do. I want people to know what to do. So I think I just didn't know that there were so many idiosyncrasies, and I am not, as we talked about earlier, the best at just computer technology.
Right.
And this has to be between Zoom and Mac and incompatibilities with Microsoft and my email and terrible websites. I can't tell you and the viewers how many times I've been, disappointed in the deliverables of certain services that you pay for. So, but I won't. I think that question might be coming.
On a more positive note, what were some of the first signs of success for Wearology? So when did you realize that things were starting to gain momentum and this could be a viable idea?
I would say just these milestones are enormous. We've received a couple different awards and acknowledgement for your hard work. Certainly does feel great. Sales Also, of course, help. But the biggest, I would say, just kind of satisfaction was driving to Richmond and delivering a device that I developed, of course, with tons of help. But to deliver that and have clinicians jump up and down with excitement, and just you can see their gears spinning of all of the possibilities of this. It was, collaborations are great. And when you develop product with the end user, the results are high performing functional products. And I'm excited for sure.
So overall, what would you say was the biggest challenge you ran into while getting Wearology off the ground?
Time management and cash flow a little bit. I have 2 children. They're in their teens. And so that is good and bad. They're very independent and they can drive. And so I do have time. And because they spend time at their father's as well, there's all that extra space that I just work. But the cash flow situation and making sure that I can market and pay my team and fair, equitable wages is challenging for sure.
Yeah. So for the benefit of anyone who's never run a business before, cash flow, we're basically talking about you want to make sure you're taking in enough money through purchases to cover your overhead and your operating costs, right?
Thanks. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Just thought I'd clarify there. But so what makes that complicated?
Your overhead costs for initial startups are outrageous because of all of the initial and continuing variable costs. So your costs just to do business. And if you want to talk about going to trade shows, and again, these are all great opportunities, but your ROI, if you go to spend $5,000 on a trade show, then you have to sell thousands of buttons to make that viable. Right. So it is exciting for us to transition into a new medical device. Becoming an FDA spec developer is very rewarding, of course, but our devices are $5,500 retail. So my break even, meaning the number of units that we have to sell to cover those overhead costs, is much lower than buttons.
Well, what was the first hard lesson you had to learn when it came to managing cash flow?
The toughest thing are the surprise invoices that you'll get. You have to have attorneys involved in patents, right? Protecting your IP. Everybody out there, definitely go ahead and make that investment, because even though it stings, getting the provisional right the first time, it just saves you a lot of money up front. You might try and do it yourself like I did, but the provisional, it's kind of worthless when we finally did hire a patent attorney, who's fabulous, by the way. But yeah, just cash flow. I don't want to digress. We can...
Oh, no, that's okay, because I've never heard of a provisional. Is that something related to a patent? What is that?
Okay, so with design, a proprietary design, the provisional is the first step, and it's still hidden by everybody. It locks in your design date. You file it with the USPTO, United States Patent and Trademark Office, and that locks in the design date that it originated. So it's the first time, for example, when I pitched Buttons to Buttons, we wanted to make sure, as I publicly tell everybody my idea, that it was protected. And then you have 1 year to convert it to a utility patent. And that's when it becomes public knowledge. That's when it gets reviewed by the trade examiner. And if all goes well, they approve it. Not usually the first time, but they do. And so there's a lot of back and forth. So the cash flow problem becomes when you have it earmarked for one thing and then you get these invoices and they're like, yeah, we spent 15 hours on that. And you're like, wow, that hurts, because I had to shift a lot of my marketing dollars into covering not so fun consulting fees.
How do you bounce back in situations like that? What do you even do?
I usually go to yoga. Take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And you have to have a sense of humor, I feel like, in business for sure, because there's always those kind of like kicks in the stomach. But as soon as I turn around, the universe works, I think, in really fantastic ways, because as soon as there's one kick in the stomach, you turn around and I have somebody calling me saying, "Hey, Gina, we love the product. I want to represent you or help you raise your seed round." There's people out there that I continually meet that are generous and awesome and helpful for us startups. And it goes without saying that the Lawrence Tech University and Centropolis Accelerator has been my backbone for this whole both developments, because of their exciting group of talented experts and residents. These are engineers or specialists in any type of space of development, so that you or I was able to find manufacturers, for example, that would be willing to work with a startup in small volume. We live in Metro Detroit, and factories, manufacturers, prototypes, houses, they're all used to working with automotive, who pay handsome fees for their services. And startups like us, we cannot compete with that.
Were there any other parts of running the business that turned out to be a lot more expensive than you thought they would be?
The whole thing is an expense. It's just understanding that while you're getting the inventory manufactured and collecting those purchase orders, there's a huge lead time, and your cash burn is pretty significant. Everybody is faced with the pandemic and the war and supply chain crisis. I mean, go to the grocery store, go to fill your car up with gas right now. It's insane. So these are things that, no, I didn't expect this. And so the price hikes, these are all just unexpected things that we know at the end of the day, though, we can bring a really profound, I think, outcome on human health services.
To tie a bow on it, what is the most stressful thing about managing cash flow? Is it paying employees, paying creditors, or something else entirely?
It's just stressful not having the inflow, the orders that we need to pay our team and myself and keep it all flowing. You've basically caught me at a very precipitous time. Is that the right word?
It could be. Is this an inflection point in your life? Are you at a crossroads, Gina?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Because we are pre-purchase orders. Like right now, I mean, we are moving into production, and we have a device that was developed by clinicians. They're excited about it. They are waiting to place a purchase order because they want to see the final shiny, polished, off-the-shelf product. And I'm used to working in the apparel industry where people, they'd see a sample and they're like, yeah, we'll order 100. They just order it because they know that it's going to be manufactured perfect. And we are presenting a first of its kind ever designed. It's beautiful, built in Detroit, super strong, withstands 1,000 pounds, 3D prototype ramps, part of it, but it looks beautiful. And the VA clinicians are like, yeah, we'll wait for the next one.
Ouch.
No, let's just place that order now, because my bank loans are dependent on purchase orders. My investors are dependent on purchase orders. So you see where I'm going with this.
I do. And you got to make a living too. I mean, you mentioned before, just the struggle of not having enough money to pay yourself. Were your personal finances in jeopardy at any point? Were there tough times along the way?
We're there. We're still going, Ben. It's here. It's not ideal.
It is
not an ideal situation, let's just say. And I am very fortunate that I have been able to persevere. Yeah.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. What was the best decision you ever made in terms of managing cash flow at your business?
I've had 5 different websites. Let's just take that as an example. The deliverables are always just a little short. So the best decision I've made is probably when, after meeting 25 different web developers, and they're all like somewhere between 25,000 to 40,000. And I'm like, I can't afford that. And especially because I've been burned, I don't know what I'm getting. And so is spending more going to get you what you would think? I do believe you get what you pay for.
Sure.
But probably the best thing is that I didn't move forward with any of those extremely costly websites. Ours is still hobbling along. I encourage everyone to go check it out at wareology.com. WAREOLOGIE, which stands for Independence and Empowerment. Probably shouldn't have done that. And so saving that capital so that I could continue to pay my staff, because again, the orders didn't come as fast as we had hoped when that pandemic hit. It was pretty tough.
So you are at a precipitous moment, Gina, but what do you hope the future of Wareology looks like? Do you have any plans to enter new markets or create new product lines over the next year or two?
Yes, we have positioned ourselves in this really fun space where we're partnering with other people with disabilities who have ideas but need the support to commercialize that. And so we are going to be selling proprietary portable parallel bars, both to VA hospitals as well as private hospital institutions across the nation. And we'll submit for our CE mark, which is the equivalent to the FDA mark for Europe, because Europe is totally confined for space. And so the unique value proposition of our portable parallel bars is that they fold up and can be stored in a storage closet. And rehab sites love that in Europe, and the rest of the world will love that too. That's that product, and that will hopefully take off and scale. We have some great wholesale medical distributors who we are currently talking to. And then that will free us up once we sell that to work with these other individuals so we can bring other unique, proprietary, and helpful devices. It's to market. It's an underserved demographic. It gets a lot of publicity, I would say, but yet I think that there are products out there. I know there are products that we can do significantly better at helping people.
Besides selling products that are designed for making daily life easier, how else does Wareology empower people with disabilities?
We are based here in Metro Detroit, and I'm excited that we partner with not only people to design and develop our products, but on the back end, we've partnered with a nonprofit called InPro, who hire people with disabilities as job opportunities. And so all of our products are made here in Michigan, and this team of individuals with various physical or perhaps CBI, traumatic brain injured individuals, they package all of our buttons to button. So it gives them a chance of job creation. And I just love the fact that I feel like we're a circular, it's not really a circular economy, but it's that concept of we're walking the walk. And so I just love the fact that we also work to employ people with disabilities as well as serve them through awesome product.
That's great. If you could go back to day one of Wareology, what's one piece of advice you would give yourself that could have saved you a lot of time, money, or effort?
I would have been much more deliberate with contracts and outlining deliverables so that communication is very clear. And I would have declined a lot of leads that ended with a closed door. Buttons to buttons as a product itself was difficult to scale and get seed funding for because it was one product wearology, though, having a entire portfolio of products is much more enticing to investors, of course, because we're not a one-trick pony. But I spent way too much time with just buttons, not realizing my own faults, that I needed that larger portfolio to really entice and get the momentum that we needed.
Makes sense. All right, last question. Let's say you're at a party and you want to impress people with a piece of trivia about your business or your industry. What fun fact do you dig out?
I had a White House memo sent about my buttons.
Wow. That's interesting. All right, tell me about that.
So I got a call from a vendor procurement officer for the VA thinking, great, I'm going to sell some buttons. And when I called him, he said, well, you have competition. And I was like, yeah, but that guy, his stuff's made in China. Mm-hmm. It's really complicated. He clearly didn't do his customer research. I got a call from the senator, and I'm trying to get these respirators out. So I was kind of annoyed. And then I got a call from your competitor, which he did not speak very kindly of. Mm-hmm. But when I finally got the memo from the White House, I decided I better give you a call. And I'm like, what is this about? He's like, well, you have our logo on your website. I'm like, of course I do. I'm collaborating with the VHA Innovators Network, and we're developing proprietary portable parallel bars for veterans. And he's like, I think it's great. I saw your website. I saw that you're doing this out of compassion and for your dad, who's a veteran. And I think it's great, but you cannot have the VA website or the VA logo on your website. You can only have the VHA Innovators Network logo. I'm like, oh, all right, it's gone. Because, of course, I do my own website updates. And I'm like, okay, it's gone. He's like, I knew we could sell this in a short conversation. I'm like, absolutely.
Now, did you ask for a copy of the memo to frame it in your office?
I did ask for a copy of the memo, which he did not grant me, but I did take that opportunity once I woke up and I'm like, who am I talking to? Wow, this guy must be pretty high level if he's getting memos from the White House. So I did actually get advice from him. I turned it into a positive and got his advice on and a recommendation, and now my new wholesale distributor for my new product.
So it all worked out in the end.
Heck yeah, like I'm telling you, like people try and kick you down. My competitors complaining about me, which is fine, I guess, except it's interesting that his made in China product is getting that much support. However, it turned into a great positive because I met my new BFF. You have to have somebody in the VA that's kind of your champion. And so I'm very fortunate for that introduction. Thank you, if you're listening.
And Gina, thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it.
That was my conversation with Gina Adams. Thanks so much to Gina for being here. Again, I'm Ben Goldstein. I'm the VP of Marketing at Nutshell. Nutshell is a simple and affordable CRM that helps thousands of B2B organizations around the world get organized. We know if you're a small business owner, there's a point where Google Docs and spreadsheets just don't cut it anymore. That's where Nutshell comes in. We help B2B organizations of all kinds get off spreadsheets and start tracking their contacts and leads so they can drive more revenue. Every Nutshell subscription comes with unlimited contact and data storage and access to our friendly Michigan-based support team, all starting at just $16 a month. Visit nutshell.com to start a 14-day free trial and use the coupon code POD20 when you purchase to get 20% off your first year's subscription. That's all for now. Special thanks to our executive producer, Seth Ressler at Community Marketing Revolution. Thanks to my co-producer, Ashante Clemens. And thank you for listening.